Let me start with saying I love my mother very much. We have a brilliant relationship, and her and my big sister are definitely my best friends. Here's a bit of backstory. I, 25F, have a very large family. I am one of 10 children, and I am the third eldest, and I love each and everyone in my large family. My family have gone through a lot over the years, and yes, I know I am still young, but I had to grow up very fast as the sibling after me was born when I was 6 years old, and I had to step up and raise him and the following 3 siblings after him. My mother would sleep most of the day as she was drained from being up and down most of the night. Understandably, so me and my big sister, 26F, stepped up. On my 9th birthday, the father of 2 of my brothers attempted to break into our house and harm us with an axe. Luckily, our dog alerted us before it was too late and no one was harmed. After that situation, our family was always a bit different. We had our normal days and we had our off days like any other, but we were all very cautious of everything and everyone. My mother tried her best to protect us, but the older 3 children couldn't forget the abyss we all went through over the years and what we watched our mother go through. Once we had moved houses, my mother and stepdad used to be uncle, as he was the brother of our mother's best friend who we always called auntie. Had children together, he already had a daughter with another woman, but she was always family to us, so we always have said 10 children in total. We were a somewhat happy family again, ups and downs of course, but what family doesn't? When they were born, I again stepped up, especially with the 8th child. At the point the 8th child was born, I was 12 years old, almost 13, and I knew what I was doing at that point. Therefore, he was like my first child, and my God, wasn't he incredible? He could make anyone smile or laugh. He was so full of love and just so pure. But sadly, he passed away in 2020 at the age of 7 from AVM. After that, our family was once again broken, but in a different way, but we all came together in another way. But sadly, my mother stopped taking care of herself. She was drinking more, as was my stepdad. Sadly, they have always enjoyed a drink, which is their way of not admitting they have a drinking problem. So when my brother passed away, it got far worse. It was so bad that my big brother and our mother didn't have a relationship for a couple years. But now I'm starting to think he had the right idea. Nearly 2 weeks ago was my 25th birthday, and I had enough. A week before my mother was complaining about her arm again, it was numb and she didn't feel right. This had happened before, but we all suffer with back problems, so she always put it down to that. But this time, it lasted longer than usual, so I called out-of-hours emergency. I then explained to them the situation with her arm and the fact that her face was drooping. This was a first. They then told her she needed to go to the hospital. So we had to wait for my stepdad to pick up my youngest siblings and drop them to my house so he can take her. Luckily, didn't take too long. So I was then looking after my 3 children, 7 to 5 and 4, and extra 2 to 9 and 6, which I didn't mind, as my main concern was my mother and her health. She was in hospital for nearly a week. She came to mine and stayed for roughly half an hour, just explaining everything that we all needed to know. Turns out she has had roughly 6 or 7 strokes over the years. She has an aneurysm on her brain. She was born with luckily not harmful, and an aneurysm on her heart, but thank God it can be managed with blood thinners. So when she left, after explaining all the ins and outs, including stopping the drink and quitting smoking, I was relieved, but of course extremely worried as well. So a week goes by and I hadn't spoken to her much as I didn't want to overwhelm her with stress and wanted her to get some rest. She had told me all the help she was getting from my stepdad and how she's not really touched a drink since she told me she had a single pint of cider and nearly smoked. I was so proud of her and amazed she did it. But lo and behold, she lied. After talking to one of my brothers that still lives with her, I found out the truth. The day she got back, she was drinking and smoking like nothing had happened, and she's been doing the same every day since. My heart sank when I heard this. I just broke down into tears. After I had my cry, I couldn't help but be angry. I don't care that she lied to me that I can get over, but knowing that she clearly don't care about her health after so many attempts, we have all tried to help, and after everything our family have been through. Now I'm left wondering if I should cut contact with her so neither I nor my children have to watch her continue to self-destruct and waste away any further. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. We have all tried talking to her and explaining our worries, but all she gives us is, "I'm a grown woman. I don't need you all telling me or false promises." This was one of the main reasons my big brother didn't talk to her for a couple years, and only recently changed that. But I know once he finds out she isn't taking things seriously, I know he's going to go back to having to contact. But this time, I might have to do the same. Story 2. I had no intention of purchasing my brother's business, but Michael also had no intention of ceasing to make fun of my small store. Evenings in life may be amusing. The score. Crystal glasses were clinking as family members shared their most recent accomplishments at the annual Morrison family Christmas gathering. I saw my brother conduct court by the fireplace while drinking water from a champagne flute in a corner. The merger is nearly finished. Michael made the announcement to our appreciative family members while casually adjusting his Rolex. I'll be in charge of the whole West Coast business when Global Tech takes over our section. Like when Michael made varsity football, got accepted to an Ivy League school, or earned his first executive job. Our mother smiled proudly. My brother's touch converted everything to gold. That's what our family thought anyhow. Olivia, how about you? Margaret then turned to face me, her voice brimming with phony worry. Are you still operating your little business? As I considered the meeting I had planned for tomorrow morning, I nodded. Indeed. Still operating that little shop, you mean? Michael's chuckle pierced the room as he continued to counsel. Now what? 5 workers. 6. It was pointless for me to correct him. Give him time to reflect. Summit Consulting was only a little business. Give him faith. I devoted my days to assisting nearby companies with payroll and tax preparation. There was far greater curiosity in the truth. However, I had long since discovered that my family didn't care about the truth. You know I could put in a word for you at Global Tech since Michael swirled his pricey scotch. Obtain a legitimate job. Something steady. Our dad gave us a nod of approval. Son, that's really kind of you. Olivia, you ought to think about it. Your age isn't decreasing. Additionally, you have that tiny consultancy thing. But isn't it more of a pastime than a job? Recalling the pile of acquisition documents on my desk at home, I tightened my hold on my glass. About 5 years ago, Summit Consulting ceased to exist, but my family still viewed me as the same struggling sister who had left her secure corporate position to pursue her own interests. Thank you. I'm good where I am. Silently, I said. Michael grinned. Yes, you are. Hi there, everyone. As usual, he commanded the attention of the room by raising his voice. Did I mention that tonight's party will be attended by the CEO of Global Tech, George Harrison? He is now almost like family. Our mother was so excited that she almost dropped her glass. This is George Harrison. Michael. Oh, that's fantastic. Knowing exactly why George Harrison was at our family's Christmas gathering, I looked at my watch. It had nothing to do with Michael's perceived value to the business. With every drink, Michael became louder and more cocky as the celebration went on. He went into depth about his post-merger plans, including how he would reorganize his division and make the necessary adjustments. He said that Global Tech needed new blood, someone who is aware of contemporary business. Harrison is nice, but he's overly cautious and old school. I'll show them how to do it when this merger is finalized. It nearly made me feel terrible for him. Nearly. It was precisely 8:30 p.m. when the doorbell rang. Michael prepared to see his CEO by adjusting his tie. Now everybody, he declared. Be natural. Harrison is more than simply my employer. After the union, he will be a family member. George Harrison entered through the open door, his silver hair shining brightly. His presence immediately commanded respect. But instead of saying hello to Michael, he looked around the room before he came across me. He murmured, Miss Morrison, as he passed my brother, who was in shock. I appreciate you coming. I wanted to express my gratitude to you directly for making this change so easy." Michael's expression twisted in bewilderment. "I don't understand, sir. My sister is someone you know." Harrison had a startled expression. "Do you know her?" He looked from one of us to the other. "I'm here tonight because of Olivia Miss Morrison. Global Tech was bought by her." There was utter silence in the room. Michael spilled his drinks on the pricey carpet as they fell out of his fingers. For support, our mother seized the closest chair. Dad's face had turned completely pale. "That is not feasible," Michael stumbled. "Olivia is the owner of a small consulting business. She handles bookkeeping for nearby businesses." I cautiously put down my glass. "Actually, Summit Consulting Group is a little bit more than that, my dear brother. As of yesterday, we, a worldwide corporate acquisition business, held a majority stake in international technology." I was finally revealing the truth that I had been keeping concealed for years. The Summit Consulting Group was more than simply my small business. It was among the nation's biggest private equity companies. I had quietly developed an empire while my family disapproved of my professional decisions. And now my brother's business was part of that empire. The color had gone out of Michael's face. However, the merger, I got promoted. "Regarding that," I said quietly, "it is probably time for us to discuss some organizational adjustments." There was an overwhelming quiet in the room. As my family attempted to comprehend what they had just learned, I could almost hear their thoughts racing. As George Harrison went on, Michael stayed still, his empty glass still hanging from his fingers. Harrison claimed, apparently unaware of the tension, that Miss Morrison's acquisition team had been incredibly effective. The manner in which Summit Consulting arranged the transaction. "Incredibly clever. Michael, your sister is a true business whiz." Michael's face turned crimson instead of white. He muttered, "This is a joke." "It must be. Olivia doesn't. She is unable to." "Can't what?" "Michael," I said softly, "incapable of managing a profitable business, cannot outsmart global technology, is bored. You can't be more than your little sister who is battling." At last, our mother was able to express herself. "Why haven't you told us all these years, Olivia, my love?" "We considered. You had the precise thinking you wanted to have," I interrupted her. "You all chuckled when Michael made fun of my small store at Thanksgiving last year, don't you? Or last Christmas when my father recommended that I enroll in some evening programs to enhance my chances." Dad moved apprehensively. "All we were worried about was your future." The future, I couldn't contain my laughter. "Dad, the assets managed by Summit Consulting Group are more than $12 billion. In the past 3 years, we have purchased 17 significant companies. That little store you were worried about so much, it just paid $4.2 billion to acquire Global Tech." Margaret also suffocated on her wine. Uncle David's tray of Christmas cookies fell on the ground. Michael appeared on the verge of blowing up. "This is not possible." He stepped closer to me and snarled, "You cannot simply enter my business and take control. For 8 years I have been employed there. I will soon be the director of the West Coast." Harrison cleared his throat. "Well, about that job." "No," I paused quietly. "George let me take care of things." I looked at my brother. "We must talk about your position at Global Tech, Michael." Role may be someplace more private." An octave was added to his voice. "That advancement was mine. Your workplace isn't enough." I spoke aggressively. It was now an anxious stroll to his home office. As we exited the celebration, I could hear the rumors bursting out behind us. After us, Michael slammed the door. His executive poise, which he had worked so hard to preserve, broke. For what length of time he made a demand. "How much time have you spent organizing this?" Was all of this a plan for retaliation? I took a seat in his priceless status symbol, a leather chair, and saw him pacing. "It may surprise you to learn that it's not all about you, Michael. For years, Summit has been interested in global technology. It was an odd coincidence that you work there. Is it a coincidence? He gave a sour laugh. Do you think you've always been envious of my accomplishments? I took out my phone and launched the app for my bank. Brother, let me show you something. I swiveled the screen in his direction. The number caused his eyes to widen. That isn't feasible. My own wealth. Calmly, I said. And I just keep fluids for that. The value of Summit Consulting Group is significantly higher. Michael, tell me about success once more. You all were worried about my future, tell me. His rage subsided a little when he dropped into a chair. Why did you never speak up? Did you think I was real? One of you? I reclined. You believed I was a failure too. Do you recall how work prevented me from attending my father's birthday celebration? You also implied to everyone that I was probably too ashamed to confess that I couldn't afford a present. That evening, I attended a board meeting to finalize the $2.8 billion acquisition of Turner Industries. Everyone assumed I was making excuses, though. There was a greenish tint to Michael's face. The Turner agreement. You were that person, however that implies. When he realized about the Madison merger last year, his eyes expanded. The purchase of Carson. Summit Consulting in its entirety, I attested. For years, we have been secretly purchasing businesses, establishing an empire, while you were all occupied with feeling sorry for me. He said, and now you own global tech. Do you own my business? Indeed. I straightened my clothing and got to my feet. In addition, I have certain reservations regarding the leadership of the West Coast division as the new owner. Michael jerked his head up. You wouldn't risk it. Would I not? I took a folder out of my luggage. I had packed it specifically for this occasion. Michael, let's discuss your performance reviews. Your risk assessments, the shortcuts you've taken, and the rules you've broken. That is commonplace in the corporate world, he objected. No, I snapped. It's careless, it's haughty, and it ends today under the leadership of the summit. He sagged down in his seat. That's all then. Are you letting me go? Your own brother. I slipped a paper over the desk, actually. I'm giving you an option. You have the option of accepting a lateral move or a transfer to our Minneapolis office. No promotion, but the same pay. Another option is to leave with 3 months severance. Minneapolis, his voice broke. However, my life is here. My connections and pals. Your exaggerated feeling of significance. I added your executive parking space and your country club membership. Yes, you would lose everything, but you would still be employed. You have an option. Michael's hands trembled a little as he gazed at the page. Olivia, this is awesome. This is how you use your power. It is inhumane. Cruel. I got up slowly as if it were terrible to make fun of my business at every family get-together. As if it were horrible to inform our parents that I was a letdown. It was harsh to offer that I accept a position as your assistant. From outside came the sound of the celebration. As if they had always believed in me, I could hear our ancestors still talking about the revelation and rewriting history in their brains. You can't make up your mind till New Year's, I remarked as I made my way to the door. And Michael, too. The corner office about which you have been boasting. It's going to be a break room. When I got back to the party, my parents were gathered with Uncle David and Aunt Margaret. As I got closer, they stopped talking. With her arms out, my mother took a step forward. We had no idea, darling. Why didn't you tell us that you've been so successful all this time? I moved away from her as she tried to embrace me. Mom, would it have made a difference? Would your treatment of me have been different if Michael's achievement hadn't been as obvious? It would have, of course. She was adamant. Were you with your family? No. Silently, I said. My DNA is shared with your people. Family members help one another. Family members have faith in one another. Respect from family doesn't need achievement. My dad cleared his throat. We may have made mistakes, but we always had your best interests in mind, Princess. Did you? I arched an eyebrow. Or did you desire what your country club mates thought looked the best? At that moment, George Harrison came up, sparing them from having to respond. Miss Morrison, I'd better leave early. We will meet tomorrow to talk about the changeover. Naturally, I grinned. The final paperwork will be sent over by my team in the morning. I heard my mother whispering to Aunt Margaret as Harrison walked away. Have you heard that she has a group of people? I nearly chuckled at the ridiculousness. They felt proud now. They were intrigued now. My accomplishment was now apparent, measurable, and remarkable to their social circle. Looking shell-shocked, Michael came out of his office. He went directly to the bar and poured a huge drink for himself. Our family members rushed to him right away, but he was silent for once. I packed all my belongings and prepared to go. I hadn't intended to tell the truth in this manner, but maybe it was better this way. Unquestionable, public, and clean. So soon to leave? My dad inquired. However, we have a lot to discuss. You have to tell us everything about your business. In fact, I looked at my watch. Tomorrow I have an early trip to London, meeting of the board with an additional acquisition target. But my mother objected. It's Christmas. Indeed, I grinned. You all understand why I can't remain for the first time. No more feigning embarrassment or difficulties to avoid family get-togethers. I'm successful, therefore I'm leaving. Because while you were all too busy questioning me to notice, I created something remarkable. I made my way to the door and then made one final loop around. Oh, and Michael, do you recall your earlier statement that you would put in a good word for me at Global Tech? Don't stress over it. I believe I can get by on my own. As I drove away from my parents' house, the expression on his face nearly made up for years of disdain. My phone was buzzing with messages from family members who were anxious to get back in touch and learn about my business, to assert that they had always recognized my ability. I removed them all. They say that the finest form of retaliation is success. However, purchasing worldwide technology, exposing my brother's mediocrity, or even disproving my family's beliefs were not the true victories. The true triumph was never having to ask for their permission in the first place. Michael accepted the Minneapolis job 3 months later. He's doing well in middle management as far as I know. Having conveniently forgotten the years they spent discounting my accomplishments, my parents now proudly tell their acquaintances about their talented daughter who is an entrepreneur. Me, I just completed the acquisition of Mawson Technologies, a small business. The pride and delight of my father. He had always anticipated Michael would eventually take over the company. I had my assistant notify them of the ownership transfer. Some things are, after all, best conveyed in person. And a few more things. A message that reads from your small shop owner's desk is a superior way to convey certain information. Story about 3. In Salem, a little village in Virginia, fall was turning to winter. The morning and evening were growing cooler, and the red and yellow leaves of the street trees were slowly falling to the ground. Martha Johnson sighed deeply as she peered out the window of the accounting office. She was looking forward to her son Ethan's winter break, which began tomorrow. Martha, have you finished going over the Hopkins family records that her co-worker Jane's voice revived? Martha smiled and nodded. A bit more. I'll finish it today. Martha has worked at the little accounting firm for almost 10 years. Many of her clientele loved her for her dependability and charming smile. Her relatively rounded, agreeable features and well-groomed brown hair made her look approachable. Martha left for home after work. 10 years earlier, she and her husband Richard had purchased the 2-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. They seemed the epitome of what it meant to be an American. Her husband was a well-known real estate agent in the area, and her child had just started attending the nearby university and was excelling academically. The house's tidy yard, surrounded by a white picket fence, made the neighbors jealous. When Martha opened the front door, Richard was in the kitchen. He was formerly handsome and confident, but lately he seemed thin. He was checking something on his cell phone with a displeased look on his face. But when he noticed his wife was back, he immediately turned off the television. Salutations from home. Richard's voice was exhausted. "You're late again today." "Your end is always busy," Martha commented, taking off her coat. "I assume Ethan will be coming home tomorrow afternoon?" Richard nodded vaguely. "Indeed, precisely. He will be picked up at the airport by me." Martha stood in the kitchen and asked, opening the refrigerator, "How did your workday go? Has Roberts' property been sold?" "Not quite yet." There was a hint of irritation in Richard's voice. "The market has been slowing down lately. Next month will be challenging as well." Martha glanced at her husband's face. Anxiety and frustration seemed to have dimmed the once glinting eyes. The downturn in the real estate industry put a lot of burden on Richard. It had been 6 months since he had finally closed any big deals. Recently, Martha had also noticed something odd about him. He had been more likely to go out without warning and to come home late. Richard pretended to grin as Martha murmured, "You can talk to me about anything that's bothering you." "I'm doing okay, a little worn out. Things should improve next month." The next day, Ethan returned from college. The 19-year-old inherited his father's beautiful features and his mother's soft eyes. "Mom, Dad, I'm back at home." Ethan hugged his parents. His voice was filled with relief at being at home. Over dinner, Ethan talked eagerly about his college days. Occasionally, though, his keen gaze moved to his father's face. After dinner, as Martha was doing the dishes, Ethan approached his mother. "Mom, I need to talk to you." His voice was solemn. "Do you think Dad has changed at all?" Martha paused for a moment. "What do you say?" "I just think he's acting strangely." Ethan continued, carefully choosing his words. "It's been bothering me for a while. He frequently goes out, and each time I approach him while he's on the phone, he hangs up the phone without warning." Martha exhaled deeply. "Your father is feeling the strain of his job. Even though the real estate market has been challenging lately, Mom, don't panic." Martha put her hand on her son's shoulder. "Adults have their own issues. Your dad is doing everything he can." Ethan seemed to say something, then simply nodded silently at Martha. Even though her child seemed to have more to say, she chose not to follow up. Because she was working on year-end accounting, she went to bed early that night with paperwork in hand. A few days later, Martha woke up in the middle of the night to find Richard not in bed. 2 a.m. was the time. As she went downstairs, she could see light streaming from the study and heard Richard's soft voice through the crack in the door. She saw her husband on the phone with someone. "I need a little more time. Don't worry, everything will proceed according to plan." Martha returned to the bedroom, uneasy, telling herself it was just work. Talk. Richard gave no further explanation when she asked him about it the following morning, just stating that he was negotiating a significant deal. That night, Ethan broke into his father's workshop. Some people earn over $10,000 a month just by posting incredible experiences on YouTube. No face, no voice, just a laptop. I've included a link below if you're interested. Dad. He had been suspicious of his father's behavior for some time and was eager to learn the truth. He opened a drawer and found printed life insurance policies for himself and his mother, along with printed emails he had sent to an unnamed woman. Ethan felt his hands trembling. The contents indicated that his father was planning a terrible plot. "Ethan, what are you doing?" He turned to see Richard waiting at the door. His eyes were colder than Ethan had ever seen them. "Mrs. Johnson, please try your best to prepare. Your child's circumstances are quite dire. Outside the critical care unit of St. Mary's Hospital." Dr. Green looked Martha in the eyes as he gently delivered the news. Martha covered her face with her hands and collapsed into a chair. Hours after her mother had been busy with year-end accounting work, her child was fighting for his life. The doctor said, "We don't yet know all the details of the accident." When the ski resort staff found Ethan, he was already unconscious. He appeared to have struck a tree after slipping on ski equipment with damaged brakes. Richard stood by Martha with extraordinary poise. But will he wake up? His voice was devoid of feeling. "I can't say at this point that there is significant head trauma and that the brain is bloated. To be honest, I don't think there's much chance he'll wake up." Martha began to cry. "I need to call the insurance company," Richard said as he checked his watch and walked out of the room and into the hallway. After that day, Martha's life revolved around the hospital. She took time off work and spent much of her time by Ethan's bedside. The white hospital walls and the continuous sounds of the life support equipment were the sole indicators of time. On the third morning, Martha appeared in the hospital room. Nurse Ellen was waiting for her when she arrived. "Mrs. Johnson, I would want to discuss something with you." She walked Martha out the door. "There are several worrisome questions raised by Ethan's accident." Martha inhaled deeply. "What do you say?" According to the accident investigation team, Ellen looked around before speaking more quietly. "It's probable that Ethan purposefully damaged his ski's braking system. They claim that the pattern is different from normal wear or malfunction." Martha was speechless. "Are you certain it wasn't an accident?" Ellen chose her words carefully. "I can't say for sure, but the investigation is still ongoing. Furthermore, when your hubby came to visit yesterday, he asked to inspect Ethan's ski equipment. But that was already proof from the cops." Martha became nervous when she heard such comments. That evening, Martha returned home exhausted. Richard was in the living room watching TV and hadn't looked up when she entered. "Ellen mentioned that you wanted to view Ethan's ski equipment," Martha asked. Richard froze, then instantly regained his composure. "All I wanted to do was check in on things. I was concerned about the equipment Ethan was using and its safety." It was a reasonable answer, but Martha began to doubt it. She reflected on her husband's behavior and his odd calmness following the disaster, his recent flights, his recent secret phone calls, and his brief hospital stays. Martha decided to investigate Richard's study a few days later when he was abroad. She began opening drawers and sifting through documents. For herself and Ethan, she found 2 excellent life insurance plans. Both had been significantly increased in number 6 months before. "What are you doing turning around?" She saw Richard standing at the door of the room. Martha was clearly nervous. "Oh, you're back. I only wanted to find some money." Richard's eyes were mistrustful in my study. "Yes, joint bills." Martha tried to seem calm. "By the way, why did you increase the premiums for life insurance?" Richard's expression hardened. "It's only a precaution in these recessionary times. I was concerned about the family's safety." It made sense as an explanation. But there were alarms blazing in Martha's heart. The following day, she checked Richard's credit card statements. They exhibited bills from hotels they couldn't identify and purchases of expensive jewelry. Martha felt nauseous. Maybe this was just evidence of an affair, but when combined with the loss of her son, other terrible possibilities emerged as Martha sat alone that weekend drinking coffee in the hospital cafeteria. One of her high school friends, Sarah Williams, approached her. "Martha, it's been a while. I'm really concerned about Ethan." Sarah took her friend's hand and took a seat next to her. "How are you?" As Martha explained the situation, she fought back tears. Sarah listened silently the entire time. Richard had been acting oddly, Martha acknowledged. "I'm starting to think he might know something about Ethan's accident," Sarah said, her face solemn. "Martha, I'm retired, but my instinct as a lawyer is that this has to be investigated." Martha was talking to Sarah in the hospital hallway while Richard was having a serious talk with a doctor. When Martha returned, Richard turned to face her. "Martha, I talked to Dr. Green. There are no indications that Ethan's condition will improve. The doctor goes on to say that it's time to consider removing life support." Martha's cheeks turned pale. "What are your thoughts?" "It's just been a week. There is yet hope." Richard shrugged. "Recognize the truth. Medically and financially, further life support is beneficial." Martha raised her voice. "Is your son's life a financial concern for you?" Richard ceased his speech. Martha shuddered at the moment of hate that flashed in his eyes. That night, Martha decided to stay at Ethan's bedside. She held her son's cold hand and fell asleep while she prayed. When she woke up in the middle of the night, she got the impression that the hand she had been clutching had slipped something into her pocket. Her fingertips touched something little and made of metal. Martha pulled it out. The little brass key was small. A piece of crumpled paper was connected. When she opened it, she saw a message written in shaky handwriting. Mom used this key to unlock Martha. Roll the little key in her hand, feeling the beat of her heart. Her pace hastened in the dim light of the hospital room as she read the note in trembling letters once more. Was this prepared by Ethan before the accident, or was he trying to express anything from inside his coma? The door to the hospital room opened and Richard entered. Martha stuffed the key and message into her pocket. "You still refuse to go home?" Richard's voice sounded tired, but his eyes followed his wife's hand gestures. "Have you made any discoveries?" "Nothing." Once more, Martha grasped her son's hand. "Prayer is all I'm doing." Richard's head went to the window. "Dr. Green spoke with me. He will bring the docs tomorrow, in reference to the issue of life support." Martha, of course, stood up. "Richard, it's just been a week. We need more time. Ethan will be back. I know that." Richard exhaled deeply. "Martha, face the reality. Ethan is not coming back. We have to continue." "Go ahead." Martha raised her voice. "How can we go on while our child is near death?" After shutting his lips, Richard left the room. Taking Ethan's hand again, Martha murmured in a trembling voice, "Ethan, can you hear me? Mom is present. Would you mind telling me something?" "All right. What this key opens, I'll see." Early the next morning, Martha returned home. Richard had already left, and the house was silent. When she went inside Ethan's room, she discovered proof of her son's existence. Prizes for swimming in high school and university pennants. There were scientific books along the bookshelves, not crying. Martha began searching the drawers, closet, and desk. "Ethan, were you hiding something?" Despite searching the whole room, Martha was unable to find a keyhole that would accept the key. She was about to give up when she felt under the bed. She ran her fingertips over the metal box. To her increasing astonishment, it was rather safe when she took it out. When she inserted the key, it did not fit. "Another key," Martha muttered. After that, she decided to look into Richard. She studies with her hubby, absent. This was her only chance. The key she tried did not fit any of the locks in the house. What does this key open? Martha sat down at the kitchen table, exhausted. She saw Ethan's college student ID when she was examining the photo on the refrigerator. She reached a shocking realization. Is that the dorm room he occupies? That evening, Martha called Sarah. "I want to go to Ethan's facility tomorrow. Could you watch Ethan while I'm away from the hospital?" "There is no one I trust, Richard." Early the next morning, Martha departed for Central University. On-campus winter break was quiet. After she described the situation, the hostel's administration granted her exclusive access to her son's room. Ethan's attention to detail was evident in the simple yet orderly dorm room. Martha searched everywhere, but could find nothing that would fit the key. Disappointed, she sat down at the desk and casually opened a drawer. She found school supplies and stationery arranged nicely. She pulled out the drawer and found cardboard at the bottom. Martha instinctively lifted the cardboard. Beneath it was a hidden notebook. Is this true? The journal, which had no lock, was held firmly in place with trembling hands and a rubber band. Martha removed the ring and opened the notebook. Her son's neat handwriting had meticulously recorded the last few months. September 15th. Dad is having an issue. He goes out a lot and makes secret phone calls. Mom doesn't seem to know. October 3rd. I found life insurance for Mom and myself when I went through Dad's study. The amounts have increased significantly. Something is wrong. October 20th. Found emails on Dad's computer that were exchanged with a woman named Vicky. No extramarital affair. They're thinking of something more frightening. Martha turned to the next page, her hands trembling. On November 12th, the lady and her father's phone conversation was captured on tape. They are trying to kill me and my mother for the insurance money. Dad seemed to be drowning in debt. I need to gather evidence. December 1st. Going home for a winter vacation. This is my last chance to get evidence. It looks like Dad is watching me. Not able to tell Mom yet. Lack concrete proof. The last page had been dated just before the trip. December 15th. I was asked to go skiing by Dad. Even if it could be a trap, I must go, or he will start to suspect me. The evidence I have collected is hidden in the library's locker number 305. I handed the key to Mike so he could bring it to Mom. If something happens. God, I want to protect Mom. Tears were streaming down Martha's face. All of this had been known to her son, who had put his life in danger to protect her. She rushed to the university library. The campus was deserted, although the library was open for a few hours. She found the locker area in the basement and saw locker number 305. The small key fit perfectly, Ethan Martha whispered. The locker contained a single brown package. When she opened it, she found a USB disk and other documents. The material consisted of printouts of emails exchanged between Victoria Cromer and Richard. They presented a horrifying plan. Our Ethan ski trip is the perfect occasion. If it seems like an accident, no one will suspect. If he dies, you will get half of the insurance money. The other half will come from Martha, but go fast. The bank will not make the loan available. Everything is going according to plan. Frank messed with the ski brakes. If a dad didn't want his son dead, they would be suspicious. So I'll act appropriately. Grieving. A week later, Martha's car's brakes would fail in the same way. Martha felt sick as she went through all the documents. The USB stick included recordings of Victoria and Richard's conversations, proof of Richard's debt, as well as a log of their explicit email correspondence. I understand everything now. Martha left the library after securely placing the envelope in her bag. Her heart was filled with horror and anger. After Richard tried to kill her and Ethan to obtain insurance money, Ethan was in a hospital bed near death. Richard even tried to cut off life support in the car on the way back. Martha gave Sarah a call. Sarah, I found evidence. All of it is Richard's fault. The police station is where I'm going. Come visit me, Martha, before you contact the cops. Come to my house. Let's review the information and decide together. Martha visited the hospital to check on Ethan's condition. Although his condition did not alter, the life support system was functioning well. Nurse Ellen was in the room. Mrs. Johnson, your husband was here earlier. He said that tomorrow he will bring the life support paperwork. With a resolute expression, Martha informed Ellen. Ellen, if Richard shows up tomorrow and I'm not there, don't let him sign anything. Don't let him do anything without my permission. Ellen nodded, albeit surprised at her haste. Muttering, Martha took hold of Ethan's hand. Ethan, Mom found out. I'll protect you, I promise. Martha was exiting the room when Richard noticed her at the end of the hallway. He approached with a grin. The smile now looked like an ugly mask to Martha. Martha, where have you been? I called you several times. I just walked away for a little. The paperwork was due tomorrow, but Martha seemed as though she didn't care. I won't sign it. Richard's eyes flared coldly for a moment. Be reasonable, Martha. Ethan is not coming back. We have to continue. I'm hopeful. Martha retaliated. And as long as Ethan needs me, I'll be there for him. The two looked to one another in silence. Martha's heart was thumping rapidly. Richard could have begun to believe that she needed Sarah's help before he brought the evidence to the police. Above everything, she had to keep her kid safe. Following Sarah's advice, Martha went to the police station the next morning with the evidence she had collected. The Salem police station was a stone building in the center of the little town. She was about to park her automobile when she noticed an unexpected scene. Richard's car was already parked in front of the police station. Fear and worry sent shivers down her spine. Richard and Police Chief Jim Powell were chatting amicably as she entered the police station. The two had been friends since high school and played golf together every weekend. When Richard spotted his wife, he smiled oddly gently. Martha. What are you doing here? Martha answered, attempting to hide her distress. You're here, but why Chief Powell stood between them? Richard recently updated me about Ethan's accident. Even though it's quite depressing, I'm happy to hear that the doctors are doing their best. Jim, I have to talk to you. Martha's hands were shaking as she opened her handbag and took out the envelope containing the evidence. You ought to view this. Richard has. Martha has recently developed psychological instability. Richard interrupted him. His speech sounded troubled, but his eyes were cold. She is confused by her son's injuries. The doctors say she requires professional care. That's not true. Martha raised her voice. I'm quite sane. Look at this evidence. Richard planned Ethan's accident. His mistress was with him. Mistress Chief Powell raised his eyebrows. Unfortunately, his friend shook his head as he turned to look at Richard. Do you want to hear her out? Richard exhaled deeply. She is consumed by her delusions. Her health was a concern for Dr. Green. 2. Chief Powell picked up Martha's letter and placed it on his desk without opening it. I understand that you're perplexed, Martha, but baseless accusations will only make things worse. Without a base, Martha gave a furious shiver. Look inside. There are recordings and emails. Martha, let's go home. Richard grabbed her arm. He hugged her so closely that Martha was afraid. You need to sleep. Take her home. Chief Powell suggested getting medical help if necessary. Martha looked at the envelope despairingly. It was clear that the head of police was behind Richard. She drove off from the police station after brushing off her arm. When she called Sarah, her hands were trembling. The police won't help Sarah. Richard was here before me. Calm down. Martha, Sarah's voice was steady. Let's think about a different approach. In the state police, one of my acquaintances is an investigator. He wouldn't be influenced by local connections if we had more convincing evidence. I'm certain Martha figured something out. I'll check out Ethan's room again. Maybe I missed something. Upon arriving home, Martha resumed her search of Ethan's room. She looked at the floor, at the air conditioning ducts, and behind the bookcases. She was about to give up when she saw a strange bulge at the back of the closet. They lifted a bit of the wallpaper. While she took off the wallpaper, a little hole existed. It included a laptop. Martha's heart pounded as she turned it on. The password shows on a screen. What may it be Ethan's password? She tried every combination she could think of. Her son's birthday, her birthday, family anniversaries. None worked. She was frantic. Ethan must have given him a hint. Martha looked at the diary again. Turning to the final page, she glanced at a casual letter. Salem High Swim Team. The 2022 state championship lasted 1 minute and 58.03 seconds. She tried entering 158.03. Not true. She turned back to the diary and saw little writing that instructed her to read the solution backwards beneath the numbers. She entered 30.851, and the laptop's screen opened, displaying a folder called Truth. Ethan had maintained detailed diary entries for several months. Recordings of Richard's conversations with Victoria and copies of his financial records. The diary described Ethan's journey from first witnessing his father's dubious behavior to learning the truth. On the evening of September 2nd, Dad was leaving. When he came back, he was carrying something from the trunk of his car. In the morning, I saw dirt on his jeans. September 10th, found messages on Dad's phone from a woman named Victoria Cromer. At first, I thought it was an affair, but the content of the communication suggested otherwise. September 20th. Put a little recorder on Dad's computer and recorded him talking on the phone about insurance money accidents and the best course of action. Mom is in danger. Martha continued to read. After investigating his father's financial situation, Ethan discovered that he owed over $5 million. Additionally, he had disclosed the whole extent of the plan that Victoria and Richard had devised. November 25th. I'm not sure if I should tell my mother without hard evidence. Dad won't be questioned by Mom. Above all, I do not wish to meddle in the relationship between Mom and Dad. I need more evidence. December 10th. I was asked to go skiing by Dad. He might change the plan if I say no, but it could be a trap. I have to go. The evidence is kept in a safe place. I've also told my best friend Mike in case something goes wrong." Tears obscured the eyes. Martha read the last entry. December 15th. "Tomorrow I'm going. I'm scared, but I have to go to protect Mom. If you are reading this diary, I have a thought. Mom, I love you. My dad is to blame, I believe. There is evidence. Don't blame yourself for anything. I decided to do this." In private, Martha covered her face with her hands and sobbed. To protect her, her son had put his life in danger. She heard the front door opening. Richard had returned. Martha quickly covered up the laptop and all the other evidence. She called Sarah and told her everything. "Don't go until the morning," Sarah said, adding, "I'll accompany the state police investigator to the hospital in the morning." Ethan exhaled deeply. "Richard, don't share your expertise with anyone." That night in the hospital, Martha sat next to Ethan and held his hand. Richard showed the nurse a stack of papers when he arrived. "These documents deal with the removal of life support," Richard clarified in a low voice. "My wife and I don't want our child to endure any more suffering. I haven't signed anything," Martha shouted. "Continue Ethan's medical treatment." Martha, calm down. Richard's tone was dangerously composed. You and the boy had been in the way long enough at those comments. Nurse Ellen's eyes became wide. Without hesitation, she left the room. "I am fully aware," Martha said in a whisper. Ethan noted it down. "All of your plans with Victoria. The debts." Richard's face became grim. "What do you know? Everything." Martha's words trailed off, but her eyes were full with determination that you had tampered with Ethan's ski equipment. That I was your next target. Richard's eyes were glittering menacingly. He stepped forward. "Where is the evidence?" The door opened and Sarah entered, followed by State Investigator Evans. Ellen was behind them. "Richard Johnson. Evans has you under custody for attempted murder." Richard rushed towards the window and was grabbed by 2 police officers. He stared at Martha with a gleam of hate in his eyes. "You wreck everything all the time," he spat. "This debt is a result of your expenditures. Was I to blame?" Martha's face was incredulous. "You were always the spendthrift, in my opinion." "Stop talking," shouted Richard. "It was the right tactic, accompanied by the youngster and you. A new life would have begun with Victoria. That's enough." Evans put an end to him. "We have recorded your full discussion." After the police removed Richard, Martha returned to Ethan's bedside. She took his hand and whispered, "Don't worry, Ethan, you're safe now. Your father has been arrested. Thank you for the evidence you collected. So please get up. Mom is waiting." 2 weeks after Richard's imprisonment, Martha was reading a book in Ethan's hospital room. As usual, the gentle light streaming in through the window illuminated her son's pale face. Ethan's finger suddenly flexed in her hand. "Ethan." Martha put down her book and turned to face her son. Ethan's eyelids opened slowly, trembling. His eyes were clouded by confusion and fatigue, but he knew without doubt. "Mom." His voice was clear, yet hoarse as he spoke. "Are you okay?" Martha clutched her kid while crying. "Yes, I'm doing okay. It's okay now that you're conscious." The doctors called it a medical miracle. The swelling in Ethan's head had subsided sooner than expected. The road to recovery would be long, but he had shown that he was determined to live. A few days later, Ethan became more conscious and made the request in a weak voice. "Dad." Martha squeezed her son's hand. "His arrest is the result of the evidence you collected." "Mom, I'm sorry." Ethan's eyes welled up with tears for not telling you the truth. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You were the one hurt." Martha patted her son's cheek tenderly. "You did a really good job trying to protect me. From now on, I'll protect you." Richard's trial began 3 months after Ethan was discharged from the hospital. With so many local reporters in the courtroom, it was a major story exposing the secret side of a perfect family. The evidence was overwhelming. Victoria Cromer. Ethan and Richard's accomplice collected financial records, emails, and audio recordings that attested to all of this as part of a plea deal. On the day of sentencing, the judge gave Richard a stern look. "You broke the sacred bonds of family. One cannot forgive a dad who tried to harm his son." Richard was sentenced to 25 years in prison. A year later, Martha and Ethan were having a quiet dinner in their new home. Following a protracted period of recovery, Ethan returned to school. His left arm was still scarred from the incident, but every day he became more mentally strong. After Richard's event, Martha, who had formed a group to assist women in similar situations, grinned and said, "We had 3 new participants in the single mother support program today. Despite their initial trepidation, they seemed encouraged when I shared your story with them." Ethan smiled. "I'm pleased if my story will help someone." Their conversation was overpowered by the June bug chirps outside the window. On the table was a new photograph of Martha and Ethan smiling happily. Richard was lonely while incarcerated. His fellow inmates detested him since he had tried to murder his own child and no one visited him. After serving her 7-year sentence and getting released, Victoria went somewhere else. But because her past followed her, it was difficult to start again. The right thing to do that day, in my opinion, was to put the key in your pocket. Ethan ate apple pie for dessert and said, "Mom." Martha took her son's hand in hers. "We had the courage to find out the truth." "Yes," Ethan nodded. "I believe that a genuine family is about watching out for each other." Outside the window, the twilight sky was beginning to become a deep purple as a new night broke. Ethan and Martha's hearts began to light up with optimism for the future in the background. Story 4. I've never done anything like this before, but every year around Christmas, when all of my friends post pictures of their families and other things, I think, LOL, that's not me. I've never been like that. I suppose I was just too much or too little because my family has always done things their way. I'll start with the Christmas that essentially made it obvious that I'm not family to them, but I'm not sure which. I'm tired of keeping it to myself, even though I've never truly told anyone the full truth. For background, I don't have a large family. Jed, my younger sister Cassandra, my older brother Norman, my younger brother Timothy, and I make up the 4 of us. Both parents are still living. Patricia is Mom's name. She is the type of person who must always be the last to speak. Wants to be in the middle all the time. She will take action if someone else is receiving attention. Just to give it back to her, I guess. Although she detested her father, she used to comment that I was too much like him, which was nice. I was the child that didn't simply nod along and didn't wait in line. Norman never did anything wrong and was always the golden boy. Cassandra was pampered since she was the only girl. Since Timothy was the youngest, he also received a baby. I was only present. You get accustomed to being background noise, I suppose. Thus, Christmas was 2 weeks away. I recall that at around 1 a.m, my mother was using her laptop, and I could hear her discussing a cruise offer she had found through the wall. I didn't give it much thought. As usual, I assumed she was only boasting to her pals. "Oh, by the way, we're doing Christmas differently this year," she says at breakfast the next day. "We'll be on a cruise." When she said that, her gaze was fixed on Norman as if she expected him to respond. He remained silent. Nobody gave me a look. "All right, cool," I responded. "When do we depart?" As if I had just farted at the table, she pulled this look. "Says, Jet, you're not coming. There are just 4 beds in the cottage. For a week, you'll be all right on your own. You're old enough." Norman, who is 15, received a bed when he was 17. "Isn't there a couch or something?" I asked. She simply chuckles and asks, "What do you want us to do?" "I don't mind sleeping on the floor. Purchase an entire additional room for you." Then, as if I were a bother, she is swiping through her phone. Dad continues to eat without actually looking at anyone. Timothy speaks up. "Jet can just stay with Grandma," he says. "However, Grandma is spending the winter in Florida." Mom responds, "No, he is capable of taking care of himself." She says it like this as if I should feel proud of it or something. All Cassandra is doing is looking at her phone. I sit there wondering whether this is genuine, as Norman remains silent. Is anyone going to speak up? It's really strange. Like the quiet. That's the thing I remember the most. They all seemed to agree. Jet is not an issue. He simply isn't significant. As a result, the next week is quite uncomfortable. Mom is preparing lists, packing, and informing the others of what they should bring. I keep expecting for Dad to step up or for her to say, "Actually, you can come," but none of those things happens. I attempt to speak with my dad a few days before they depart and ask if I would be able to travel. Perhaps they should give a call to check on their place. "You know your mom made the plans," he says. "I'm not going to get involved." I walk to my room, and while it seems silly, I punch my pillow. It is therefore early on the day they go, like it's still dark outside. Not even hungry. I'm in the kitchen, preparing toast. Just their mother enters, sets down her bag, and says, "Here, give me this $20 bill that looks like it's been washed, and don't set the house on fire." Heh. Norman is wearing headphones behind her. Cassandra is using the camera on her phone to do cosmetics. Timothy is jumping all over the place like a dog. Nobody even gives me a glance. "You know where the food is," she simply adds. "If you need anything, give us a call, but try not to." I inquire as to whether they will return on Christmas morning. "It will be more enjoyable without your complaints," she replies with a giggle. I tighten my jaw. I remain silent. Without saying apologize, she snatches her luggage and bumps it into my foot. Norman gives me a shrug. "For example, what are you asking me to do?" Actually, Cassandra apologizes to Jet, but she does it in a way that betrays her lack of sincerity. Mom is shouting, so Timothy gives me a short embrace. Dad is outside honking, and they are running late. Then they disappear. As I watch them cram themselves into the car, I stand in the doorway. Mom is giggling too much. Through the window, I hear it. After they go, the home feels enormous. I simply go about browse TikTok play games on my phone and eat whatever I want. I was hoping they would phone to check in, but they didn't. Nothing. Not on that particular day. Neither on Christmas Day nor on Christmas Eve. I honestly have no idea what to prepare for supper, so I end up making toast. The kennel's canines. Thus, even he is absent. The refrigerator hums as I sit at the table. I occasionally hear a car outside and speculate that they could be returning early, but it's never them. I open the one gift my mother left me, socks, and go through the motions on Christmas morning. It's simply a simple white one, not even the sort I prefer. A card that reads, "Perhaps you'll be less difficult next year." I dispose of it in the garbage. I attempt to text Norman. "Merry Christmas, please. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves." I'm left on read by him. I come upon a picture of them on the ship deck while browsing Instagram. Everyone is grinning. About 200 people like it. A commenter asks, "Are you not missing a child?" Mom responds that Jet is old enough to take care of himself. I don't even try to answer. A few days later, they return boisterous and tanned. Mom is boasting about the cuisine. Cassandra is insane. Norman has an arm around a girl from the cruise and her phone got wet. Timothy is furious. He misplaced his sunglasses. I'm standing with my arms folded in the hallway. When Mom sees me, I say, "Oh, you survived." "Yes, I appreciate you checking in." "Don't start yet," she says, rolling her eyes. Nobody desires drama. When Dad tries to pat my shoulder, I resist. He lets out a sigh. Norman remains silent. Is it true that I fed Cassandra fish? I simply turned to leave. I overhear Mom and Dad fighting in the kitchen that evening. "Why must he always make things difficult?" she asks. He could have simply savored the silence. "Perhaps we ought to have brought him," Dad replies. Mom says, "He's still a kid." You are aware that he has always been an issue. I head to my room and firmly close the door. For the remainder of Christmas break, I don't speak to any of them. I ignore Norman when he attempts to encourage me to play games. I get a message from Cassandra requesting that I return her charger. Mom thinks I should stay at home when Timothy asks if I want to go to a movie. I begin planning my departure as soon as possible. Being the extra is over for me. I'm not related. Not at all. They were rather explicit about it. I suppose that concludes part 1. I know that seems wild, but that's precisely how it happened. I never received an apology. To be honest, I never requested one. I simply began to count down the days till I could really chop them off. What truly transpired after that, and the reason I never really looked back, will be covered in the next section. I suppose I'll just jump in again because, to be honest, it's crazy to look back and see how much being unwanted at home plays with your psyche. It just gets crazier for update 1. People have been saying things like, family's family, you'll work it out, for years. However, there are instances when you simply become weary of being the one they let go when it's convenient for them. Not sure. After that Christmas, I was simply beyond being the odd one out, even though I kind of always knew it. It was odd, like lifeless eyes at the table immediately following the cruise. No one discussed it. Norman, like nothing had occurred as he continued to attempt to persuade me to play games with him. However, he would simply respond, "It's not my fault, ask Mom," if I mentioned the vacation. I thus ceased inquiring. I simply stopped showing up. I would go to my friend's place and eat after everyone had left early. I kept what had occurred to myself. Not at all. Who of us wants to be the child humiliating our own parents? I don't know. People behave strangely when you tell them that your family is awful. They either make excuses for your parents or don't believe you. I simply stopped sharing as a result. Maybe spring break was the first really border moment, in my opinion. Everyone but me was firing off names while Mom talked about a beach getaway. This time I asked if I might come. "Don't make this about you," she said. After mumbling something, Dad walked out of the room. "Cool," I said. "I won't ask again." In an effort to spend as much time as possible at the skate park, I began to spend more time there. Mom would ask me when I got home if I wanted to eat her meals or simply stay at her place for free. "You left me alone at Christmas," I retorted. "Perhaps I ought to have simply moved out." She gave me a smack. I recall only gazing at her. She stormed out after slamming the refrigerator. I stopped expecting anything after that. In order to bounce as quickly as possible, I started putting aside any money I received from birthdays or other sporadic sources. I began keeping my phone beneath the pillow as I slept in case something happened. I didn't trust them to keep me out, not because I believed they would need me. It may sound crazy, but you start making plans for the worst when your own mother thinks you're old enough to spend a trip alone. Norman never really defended me, and to be honest, I believe he enjoyed being the one for whom Mom genuinely did things. Cassie. She kind of drifted on her phone all the time, only seeming concerned when it didn't interfere with her plans. After his mother scolded him for siding with me, Timothy, who was still a child, stopped inviting me to hang out. In any case, thus a few years pass. All I'm doing is counting down the days till I can go. At home, I hardly ever speak to anyone. Mom continues to act as though I'm the issue, constantly telling her friends that I'm challenging. Never content. Even when I was there, she would talk about me as if I didn't exist. She once told Aunt Harper over the phone, "Chet just can't let things go." He is very dramatic. I hope he'll just act normally. As usual. As if I were an issue to be resolved. No human. As usual, Dad remained silent. "It's difficult for your mother," he would occasionally try to say. "She's under stress, you know, but I ignore it. When I finally walked out, I was done caring." It wasn't a particularly dramatic event. I simply packed up my belongings, bid Timothy farewell, and left Cassandra a note. Mom claimed that I was being ungrateful and that I would never comprehend the difficulties of parenthood. "You left me alone for Christmas," I said. "Do you want me to say anything else?" She referred to me as self-centered. I didn't even turn around. I simply left Norman on read when he texted me about a week later to ask if he could use my old headphones. I deliberately avoided going home for the holidays after that. I'd get random texts from Mom, sometimes asking for money, sometimes asking if I'd come move boxes or help fix something. I always said I was busy one time. Norman tried to guilt me into coming home for Thanksgiving, saying Mom was really struggling. I said she's got 3 other kids. He left it alone. Cassandra started hitting me up for help with her phone or laptop, but only when she needed something. Timothy faded out. Honestly, and I don't blame him. It's hard to keep up when everyone's just in their own world. The thing is, it wasn't like one big fight. It was just a million little things piling up. Like Mom never remembered my birthday. Dad would forget to include me in group messages. Norman would only call when he wanted something, and if I didn't help, he'd get all passive-aggressive. Once he called me lazy for not coming to help him move. I hung up after laughing. After a while, I stopped feeling guilty. I realized the only time they wanted me around was when I was useful. If I wasn't, I didn't exist. Stuff with my family simply kept getting stranger, to be honest. One year, Mom emailed me a snapshot of their Christmas meal with a note like, "I wish you were here." But then I realized in the backdrop that my plate wasn't even placed. Like, why even bother? Norman got engaged, didn't even invite me to the family meal about it. Cassandra had a breakdown about my not lending her cash for a festival. She referred to me as self-centered. I told her to go lost. She blocked me for a month, then unblocked me when she needed a lift to the airport. The money problem started becoming worse for them. A few years ago, Mom lost her side hustle. Dad's retirement tanked, and now everyone was behaving like I was required to step up and help out. Norman called, wondering if I could co-sign for anything. I chuckled and replied, "You left me out of everything. Why would I do that?" He became enraged and accused me of harboring resentment. Mom began sending me sporadic guilt trip texts as if we were still your relatives. "You must assist." I simply stopped answering. When they became too much, I blocked their numbers. They would always push back when I established a barrier. Mom once unexpectedly showed up at my house, banged on the door, and yelled at me to allow her in. I threatened to call someone if she didn't leave. She fled after slapping the door. Norman told me I would regret it when she left, and then he texted me. I assured him that aiding you wasn't one of the many things I already regretted. I started changing my number a few times to make sure they couldn't find me, blocked them on all relevant apps. People frequently question why I didn't just forgive and move on or try harder, but why should I? I discovered early on that I would never be the one they wanted at the table or the favorite. I gave up acting. You believe them when they show you who they are. Because I was difficult to manage, my mother always regarded me like a burden. Busy. I wouldn't merely comply. Being in the middle was something Norman enjoyed. It pleased Cassandra to be pampered. All Timothy wanted was serenity. Each of them played a part. I left because I was the extra. Norman's attempt to utilize my information without my consent was most likely the final straw. I discovered out when I contacted him after receiving a bill in the mail that had his name on it but my address. He seemed to be unintelligent before responding, "Well, you never answer your phone." I had to take action. I promised to make sure he felt bad about it if he ever did it again. He ended the call. Mom yelled at me over the phone. I banned her number for a year after telling her I was done. So it's just me now. I have my own stuff and buddies. I never return, not for birthdays or holidays or anything else. I am occasionally asked if I miss them. Miss what? I ask. Being excluded, being the fallback option, no. I'm doing okay. Now I only think about myself. They also know where to look for someone else if they ever need something. This is where things become fascinating, though. For them, things are about to get serious. I won't lie either. I'm not even sorry. In the next section, I'll explain how I ensured they experienced what it's truly like to be excluded. The person waiting by the phone is no longer me. You'll want to watch what happens next, so stay tuned. If you've read this far, you're presumably aware that I didn't just fall asleep and go into full therapy mode or something. This is update number 2. No, people constantly pretend as though setting boundaries would bring you serenity or whatever. But sometimes it simply serves to highlight how much bullshit it is. You endured for years, and long before things became difficult for them, I began organizing my own retaliation. They always assumed they could simply throw everything on me and I'd roll over, but I don't let things go. No more. Norman's attempt to contact me as if nothing had occurred was the first strange incident that truly irritated me. He attempted to use my information to pay his own bills before this. Recall that he messaged me this week to say, "Hey, let's grab lunch and catch up." After about 3 days, I just left him on read. Then, as if family wasn't about keeping score yet, Mom sends this group text. I answered, "Leaving your child alone for Christmas is also not a part of family." She accuses me of being emotional and claims that I am humiliating her. Once more, I blocked her. Norman made around 5 attempts to phone me. I choose to disregard it. After that, they get desperate. Cassandra's acquaintances and even some former neighbors began telling me, "Hey, your mom says you're ignoring her. Is everything all right?" Such as, "Keep other people out of this." I thus began to make it apparent that I was no longer the fallback option. I always declined their requests for assistance. Norman asked me to assist him with his next move. I advised him to get a job. I was requested to pay Cassandra's phone bill. "Pay it yourself," I said. When Timothy got into a quarrel with his mother, he wanted to come over here, but I told him to work things out. I had to do that. This is when things get more realistic. Mom began to struggle financially. She had always pretended that she would never have to worry and lived like she was on a reality show purchasing strange items. When Dad's retirement failed, they began liquidating their belongings. About co-signing a loan, Mom texted me. I chuckled and emailed her a screen grab of her previous communication stating that I was old enough to handle things on my own. She contacted me, left a lengthy message on my voicemail, and said that I was destroying the future of the family. I only kept it for amusement. Norman said that they made a concerted effort to play the guilt card. "Mom isn't feeling well, you know. You must assist." I said, "Perhaps you would have backup if you didn't constantly pretend that I didn't exist." Cassandra attempted crying and expressed her fear for her mother. I said, "Ask Mom why she didn't spend Christmas with me." For a while, they gave up, but I wanted more. It wasn't only wine I wanted them to feel. I so began to perform the little things that would truly irritate them. First, there was an old family group chat that Mom used to keep everyone informed about essential things, such as who was bringing what for the holidays or when we needed to pay the bills for items we shared, like the storage unit that held our old belongings. One day I quit the group when Mom posted a picture of them having dinner without me saying that she wished Jet was present. I said, "Too bad he's always so busy. You made it obvious that I'm not required, which is why I'm busy." After that, I departed. I refused Norman's attempt to add me back since the storage unit was registered in my name. Since I was the only one who could obtain the good bargain, they had always just utilized it. I moved my belongings out, changed the code, and warned them that if they didn't receive theirs within 30 days, they would be thrown out. Mom texted a dozen times in a panic. I was called shouting by Norman. Cassandra attempted to intimidate me with her boyfriend. I threatened to discard it if they didn't pay me the outstanding rent. Norman attempted to arrive at my house. I warned him that I would get someone involved if he ever did it again. He took a step back. Mom paid the overdue rent a week later, but she included a scathing message about family. Money shouldn't be a factor. I returned families. It shouldn't involve abandoning your child. When they arrived to retrieve their belongings, she slammed the door. I began to lean heavily into it. Then, I allowed them to wait in case they ever needed a ride, tech support, or anything else. Norman once called me at 2 a.m. I suggested call Cassandra since his car broke down on the freeway. He ended the call. Cassandra made an effort to coerce me into paying her taxes. "I'm not your accountant," I said. "Work things out," Mom shouted in the corridor as she attempted to arrive at my flat once more. I told her to go. She felt ashamed when the neighbors heard. However, Timothy pushed me this one time. I pushed him away when I wouldn't give him petrol money. He slammed the elevator door and rushed out. Mom called and screamed that I was destroying the family. I informed her that unless you needed something, the family was never together. They began to get increasingly desperate. One night, Cassandra contacted me in tears because she was having trouble paying her rent, and her mother was refusing to assist her. "Sell your old phone or ask Norman," I suggested. She hung up after calling me a jerk. Norman attempted to have me approve certain documents. Dad and I declined. "You're going to regret this, Jet," he shouted, slamming his fist on my table in a fit of rage. I just advised him to go lost while laughing. He slammed the door and walked out. Then the big one arrived. As she had always promised, Mom sought to sell some ancient family jewels for the children. In order to divide the money, she needed my signature. "Funny how I'm now family when you need anything," I remarked. She slapped the wall on her way out after getting red in the face. Norman emailed me a picture of his mother weeping a week later and said, "You're breaking her heart." Perhaps she ought to have considered that before abandoning me, I added. For a month, he blocked me. I began to make it apparent to everyone that they would not be able to speak on their terms if they so desired. No more acting nice or lending a hand if they had a desire. The answer was no. I didn't act rudely. I simply quit acting. At last, Mom began to realize that I would no longer be the one fixing things. On one occasion, she attempted to apologize, but it was more like, "I'm sorry you feel that way." "Save it," I said. She attempted to give me a family hug. Norman rolled his eyes as I took a step back. "I'm constantly in need of drama," Cassandra said. Timothy simply gazed at the ground. Norman's repeated attempt to use my name for a credit application was the final straw. After learning about it, I phoned him and threatened to prevent him from obtaining a loan in the future. He attempted to shove me. I pushed him away. Mom yelled at both of us. I simply picked up my luggage and walked out. I locked down everything, checked my credit, and changed all of my passwords. So, yes, I made sure they always thought of me with regret. No more rides, no more assistance, and no more covering their filth. Whenever they tried to blame me, I simply ignored them. I forced them to repay me every bit when they attempted to take advantage of me, or else they would receive nothing. They detested the fact that I was no longer the backup. To cover my personal expenses, I even sold my portion of some ancient family property, kept it a secret until it was finished. Mom went crazy. I got about 20 texts from Norman. Once more, Cassandra blocked me. The finest aspect, people began to take notice. The family's old friends would inquire as to why I was absent. People could tell even if Mom made false stories. Since I wasn't present, Norman became irate when no one showed up for his birthday. After I informed her friends the truth, Cassandra stopped receiving support from them. Timothy simply stopped talking. All of them are now alone with one another. No more fixers, scapegoats, or contingency plans. Nor am I finished yet. The portions that really struck them come next, as in for true trust. You will want to watch the conclusion of this. The last update. In actuality, it goes down here. I'm not the kind to simply fade off and let others act as like nothing occurred, even though I know that many people undoubtedly assumed I had simply gone on and ghosted my family. As you can see from reading the preceding 3 sections, I wanted more than just distance. I wanted them to understand the pain they caused me, not just a little annoyance, but the whole sensation of being frozen out, humiliated, and rushing through the entire situation. And I eventually figured out how to make it happen. The strange thing is that last week, everything began so normally, as if nothing had occurred. Norman texted me to ask whether I would be attending this family gathering for Dad's birthday. You honestly think I'm going to come over just to sit there and act like we're all right, bro? I put him back on read. Mom then phoned 3 times in a row 2 days ago without leaving a message. Once more, I blocked her. I don't know what it is about her. It seems as though she considers phoning repeatedly. All right, so I received this very boring email from a lawyer's office. Not even a practicing attorney. Just another one of those cheap internet requests for signatures. In order for your mother to sell a number of family possessions. She intended to cash out the old lake lot, it turns out. We lost our grandparents, the only valuable item on which the entire family has their name. Legally, all the children had to sign Wild, so she couldn't do it without my signature. I feel like I'm family again all of a sudden. I didn't answer at all. Norman left a slew of voicemails accusing me of wrecking things when he attempted to call me about it. Mom was deteriorating, that's all. I started making plans because I didn't care. I pulled out all of my old documents and determined exactly what I owned, what I could sell, and what I could block. I recovered all of the old text chains, emails, and group chats. I removed my name from the household utilities, changed the passwords on the old shared picture drive, and made sure everything I had was locked away. Everything was now in Mom's name. For once, let her pay those late fines. I informed the storage facility via email that I was not liable for anything left in the unit. I called the bank and asked them to remove my name from the joint account that Mom used for family emergencies. I also instructed the tax office to forward all future correspondence to my mother's address rather than mine when I phoned. Don't help them out or hide their filth any longer. Norman, Cassandra, and Mom all freaked out and said I was being petty while the group chat blew up. I was removing food from their lips. Christmas would be ruined by me. "Welcome to my world," I simply said. Screaming, Mom called. I ended the call. Cassandra gave me a lengthy essay about how I was ruining everything, and she always looked up to me. "You mean that when you all abandoned me that Christmas, you all ruined me?" I responded back. "Crickets. This is the nice part. You mean the Lake Lord. It isn't only sentimental. It's the one thing that could help them escape their financial predicament. They knew it, I knew it, and I had the upper hand." Even Mom attempted to be pleasant, saying things like, "Let's get together and talk. You are still my son, though. You only remember it when you're in need," I remarked. She remained silent for a while before accusing me of being frigid. I claimed to have learnt from the greatest. The phone was slammed down by her. Norman called me again, growing angrier with each call. He once came to my house and pounded on the front door while shouting that I was destroying my mother's health and that she sobbed every night. I threatened to call the police for trespassing if he didn't leave. I pushed him back out the door as he attempted to push past me. He stated I was dead to him and called me a jerk. "Good, now you understand how it feels," I added. The door was slammed. It was a day before I heard from him. The lawyer then sent me another email yesterday, this time stating that they couldn't proceed unless I signed. "I don't want to help people who have never helped me," I said. Norman begged via text. Weeping, Cassandra called. I simply turned them all off. Mom made a final attempt and left a message expressing her forgiveness for everything. I nearly dropped my phone because I was laughing so hard. Then that occurred this morning. When I woke up, I saw 11 consecutive texts from Norman. First things first, all uppercase. "Then what did you do?" "She is weeping uncontrollably." "Then please just pick up the phone." "She isn't eating, she's going crazy. This is not required of you. Why are you acting this way? Simply sign the fucking document. What's wrong with you? Please, please, please. Simply give her a call. Please." I simply sat there looking at my phone dongle without responding. A part of me questioned if I ought to feel guilty, but then I remembered that 15th night, consuming cold bread by itself. Every time they left me out, I didn't even think about a text. I was always the backup, the extra, and the last thing on the list. No, I refused to give in. I switched the phone to quiet mode. Yes, I did leave it there. I didn't answer. Like I had to, I let them work it out and didn't sign or phone back. Family's family, you should help. I know people would say, but where was that enthusiasm in me as a child? When they chuckled about leaving me for dead for a week, where was family? They may now sit with it, scurry, and experience what it's like to have the one person you always believed would help you say, "No, you're on your own." To be honest, I don't give a damn whether they're upset if Mom is sobbing or if Norman doesn't talk to me ever again. The days of eating cold bread by myself are over. Indeed they are. That's all then. I received my Christmas at last. It was the one they deserved, not the one I desired.